What's up and what's good? Welcome back. Two things. First of all, the painting is finished. I know what you're thinking. How's the painting finished? The video just started. Well, when I recorded the intro a week ago, turns out I had something on my face, and I didn't realize that until I was editing this morning. So here I am redoing the intro. But two, man, am I actually glad that I am redoing the intro, because now I can genuinely and honestly tell you this is one of my favorite paintings I've done to this point, and I think the video is great and I think you guys will really enjoy it. So stick through to the end. Currently the painting is curing under this plastic tub without spoiling too much. It is beautiful, it looks great, the resin is perfect, and I'll see you guys at the end. Let's get it. Oh yeah, and I guess there's a few other things I should mention from the original intro. Most notably, this is a resin painting, a see-through painting. It's beautiful, it's awesome, but if you've never seen one of my videos on these, I'll link a video above, the first ever video where I talked about these, that goes more in depth on how I create these canvases, where the idea comes from, and how I actually build them layer by layer. Alright, so despite the fact that we have already built the canvas and it is prepped and ready to be painted, we're going to swap out the canvas for the iPad to design what we're drawing first. Alright, so I'm sitting here designing the mask. In fact, I actually finished designing the mask and I realized I did not document it well enough at all whatsoever. So I'm actually going to work backwards a little bit, show you guys into the process. This is actually the finished mask. It's African themed. I want to show you guys what inspired it, but also how this art style came to be. Through history, there's been millions of different masks and millions of different cultures who all have unique masks, and I just find it super inspiring and fascinating that they all represent different points in history in different ways, in different cultures, and it's all so unique. And as someone designing masks, I have limitless potential where I'm not tied down by materials or culture or anything. I can design masks however I want, which I just see as a lane to endless creativity. So the final product you get with this style is, in my opinion, beautiful and completely unique. But that see-through element doesn't come without drawbacks and hurdles. First things first, you're working with a sticky substance, which gets hair and dust in it like no other, and will drive you crazy if your studio isn't perfectly clean and you don't perfectly cover everything that might have dust or whatever come off of it. It can be incredibly frustrating to work with epoxy resin, especially when that's not even the main thing you're working with. You're painting, but then you're also working with epoxy resin. It can be very difficult to work with sometimes. Not to mention that it's expensive. When you end up building 3, 4, or 5 layers of resin, that adds up over time in a way that just buying a traditional canvas doesn't. But the biggest thing is you have to think backwards, use negative space, and that is incredibly difficult. I cannot emphasize enough that you cannot paint over your mistakes. The final piece is intended to have see-through elements to it. So if you accidentally sketch over a part that's supposed to be see-through, or if you accidentally lay a stroke of paint down over a part that's supposed to be see-through, there's no covering that over and redoing it. The see-through element's gone. It's kind of similar to a sculptor using a log of wood. He cuts at it, he cuts at it, he cuts at it, but if he accidentally cuts too much, you can't put it back. Same goes for the see-through element in these paintings. Alright y'all, I've been painting for a little bit now, taking a minor break, but it started absolutely pouring. These are far and away my favorite days to paint on. Just so satisfying to listen to. Add a little bit of music and rain noises and infinite production on the way. So yeah, this mask actually is inspired by something. It's inspired by an African mask my parents brought me from Namibia over 5 years ago, and that influence is mostly seen in the elongated shape and the pointy bottom, along with the lips as well a little bit. As I'm sure you noticed, the mask is the only thing in detail and color. I actually played around with the idea of putting the person in detail a little bit as well, but then scrapped that idea because I thought it took away too much from the mask. The mask is the focus and not the person, but I did need to find a way to kind of merge the two together, so I decided to show the way the mask connects to the person, which is through the string, and then that ended up fusing the two together very well, and I was very happy with it. Alright y'all, so I'm very nearly finished with the painting outside of adding some colors to the strings that connect the mask to the head, and I have to create some kind of border, some kind of environment for the mask to be in. Because while we're trying to utilize negative space, we are not trying to be lazy painters. If we just put a mask on a see-through canvas, the see-through element doesn't feel that cool. But if the see-through element is purposeful negative space used within an environment and the mask is highlighted in that environment, then it becomes a really cool image. So while I am an artist, I did in fact go to college, and while I studied architecture there for a little bit, I remember there was this one style of architecture that caught my eye that I studied just for a very little bit in the country of Mali. And the most famous building that was used with this style was and still is called the Great Mosque of Jen. And I thought it might be the perfect inspiration to pull from when trying to come up with an environment and a background for this African themed mask. Alright y'all, the painting is finished and I couldn't be happier. The background is simple enough to where it doesn't distract you from the mask. In fact, it leads you into the mask with its lines and stuff, but it also has enough texture to the point where it is not overly simplistic and boring. And at the same time, I also use the background to carve out these shoulders. So although the shoulders and neck aren't painted, it's now easier to see that there's a person underneath the mask, even though that person is see-through.